Happy Halloween, everyone. For those of you who celebrate that holiday, um, I'm dressed as a woman. So, uh, and that would actually get me a better job if that were the case. But anyway, I lost my train of thought. So, Pope, next Pope, Cardinal Zuppi. I don't have this as part of the report, but he did say traditional Vespers, and uh, this was in Italy. He's a cardinal in Italy. He's got a good chance of becoming the next pope, and I don't know if he knows the Latin Mass or if he encourages his priests to say it, but let me move this a little bit. There we go. The shadow's bothering me. But anyway, he did that, and so the trads were kind of excited. Um, I don't really know what to think. I don't really know what to make of it. I mean, if he's elected pope, that's fine. But then I think wasn't that the same guy who wrote an endorsement for Father James Martin's book? So you got to be careful what you wish for. Anyway, let's start out. I don't have a ton of stories today, so leave your comments if you have any. So the Hobart Catholic School, St. Mary's College in Australia, made headlines last week when concerns were raised about the chosen reading for its graduation Mass, which is Ephesians 5, verses 21 to 23, which includes, "Wives should regard their husbands as they regard the Lord, since as Christ is the head of the church and saves the whole body, so is a husband the head of his wife. And as the church submits to Christ, so should wives submit to their husbands in everything." After concern among staff, students, and parents, and backlash on social media, Archbishop Julian Porteous agreed to change the reading, then provided an alternative. So I believe this was an all-girls school. The section of Ephesians 5 is the reading for the day in the Novus Ordo Rite, and so that's what it would have been, but then he changed it. The Archbishop said, "We now find ourselves as Catholics, as Christians, being criticized and persecuted because we believe the Scriptures teach and we desire to live by its imperatives, even when they are at variance with the ethos of our times." And so he was very disappointed that there was backlash about it, but he changed it anyway. And he said, "Oh, well, we're so disappointed that people can't accept the Catholics, and they're criticized. As Catholics, we're criticized. Well, what did you do about the criticism? You backed down." Is that a real bishop? The real bishop? Well, I mean, it's typical Novus Ordo, right? Though, oh, we can't say anything that offends women, or that would give any indication of the patriarchy. The Archbishop, he didn't have to change the reading. He could have said, no, read the reading and learn from it. There's offensive things in the Bible, things that are going to offend people, but guess what? Are you going to change the Bible? Well, I mean, I can think of a famous guy who did, Martin Luther. So yeah, you will change the Bible to fit your own perspective. And that's sad to see. Cardinal Luis Tagle said that the Holy See signed the agreement to safeguard Cardinal Tagle said the Holy See signed the Vatican Chinese agreement to safeguard the valid apostolic succession and the sacramental nature of the Catholic Church in China. He said, and this can reassure, comfort, and enliven baptized Catholics in China. In dialogue, the Holy See has its own respectful style of communicating with representatives of the Chinese government, which never ignores and always makes present the situations of the suffering of Catholic communities, which sometimes arise from inappropriate pressures and interference. So the Vatican Chinese deal is great. Awesome, great news. Cardinal Tagle saying it's great. Well, you know what? He has a top position in the Vatican. So what do you think he's gonna say? But it's definitely sad to see all of these guys throwing Cardinal Zen under the bus. All right, moving on to Cardinal Hollerich. Oh, this is great. Cardinal Jean-Claude Hollerich, S.J., Jesuit, responded to an interview question about the decision last month by Belgium's Catholic bishops to support the possibility of blessings for unions of LMNOP couples. Now, obviously, you know what Cardinal Hollerich is going to say. He said, frankly, the question does not seem decisive to me. In the interview, Cardinal Hollerich pointed out to the etymology of the Italian words for the phrase to bless and to curse. So the different phrases. He said, if we stay with the etymology of say good, the quote, say good, do you think God could ever say bad about two people who love each other? So that's what it's all about. It's not about Catholic doctrine. It never was. He said, I would be more interested in discussing other aspects of the problem. For example, what is the conspicuous growth of the LMNOP orientation in society driven by? Or why is the percentage of LMNOPs in ecclesial institutions higher than in civil society? So he's admitting that there are more LMNOPs in power in religious organizations and in civil society, which is actually quite shocking, considering there's quite a few LMNOPs that are politicians. But even more so, priest and bishop, is that what he's saying? At least he admits it. And being a Jesuit, he'd probably be one to know. I don't believe a lot of what he says, but that's one thing I believe he has an inside look at. Bishop Franz Joseph Overbeck of the Diocese of Essen, Germany, commissioned 13 more female pastoral ministers to confer the sacrament of baptism. In March of 2022, he commissioned 18 lay pastoral ministers, including 17 women, to administer the sacrament of baptisms in their respective parishes for a period of 3 years. So I don't know if I missed that or not, but I definitely forgot about it at the very least. So 17 plus 13, that's 30. So there are 30 basically female deacons in this diocese that are baptizing babies. And at that point, guess what? I can baptize my own child. You're best off doing that. I mean, if your only option is women baptizing children, now obviously in the case of necessity, anyone can do that. Even an unbaptized person, anyone can administer baptism. But if it's not in the case of necessity, then you kind of want the whole ceremony, the whole deal that goes along with the baptism, like the exorcisms, right? That's what we're concerned about. So you get that in the Latin, and you get that in the Byzantines. Do you get that in the New Rite? Oh, can't answer that. Overbeck said in his sermon on Sunday, "It is a good and very meaningful tradition, deeply connected with the origins of the Church, that the sacraments are governed and administered by those who hold an office, holy orders in the Church. In times of structural change, this is becoming increasingly difficult," the German prelate continued. "Thus, by recognizing the crisis-ridden times, I use the possibilities offered by canon law in order to grant you, dear pastoral and parish ministers, permission to administer baptism in exceptional cases." Okay, so anyone can administer baptism in exceptional cases. Very clearly, I mean, we can see right through this. We can see right through these lies, because that's what it is. It's straight up lying. It's being very dishonest. he said, administering the sacraments can become difficult. All right, so let's look at this situation here. You have a kid who's not in, the baby's not in danger of death, and you want a baptism. Oh, well, the priest, I mean, he does this 40 hours a week and that's it. I can't fit your baptism in until next year. Sorry. Really? Are you serious? These people can. This is Germany. All right, the perspective. You live. So many of you live in the United States. Many of the viewers live in the United States. How close are? If you drive. Let's say this. Let's say 30 minutes, half an hour. How many churches are within a half-hour radius of your house? Germany's the population of Europe is more dense. The population density is greater in Europe than the United States. I mean, I'm just gonna kind of throw it out there. In Europe, any of the countries in Europe, they're very close to a city. You can easily make it. How close are you to a Catholic church? And are these priests so busy that they can't do baptisms? They can't even fit a baptism in their schedule. You don't have, and quite honestly, most of these Novus Ordo priests, they have baptisms during Mass. So you're saying you can't do a baptism, even though you do baptisms during Mass because all are welcome, community, active participation, all this stuff. You can't do a baptism during Mass even though you do baptisms during Mass? You can't do a baptism before or after Mass? You can't spend 5 minutes? Absolutely pathetic. This is fake. It's a fake church. All right. Brazil president, well, former president, Jair Bolsonaro consecrated his country on October 24th to Our Lady at the Presidential Chapel. He shared the consecration prayer on Instagram with the Catholic priests of Brazil, asking them humbly to recite a consecration in their Eucharist or privately. The text is, Queen of Heaven and Earth, as head of the Brazilian nation, I renew that request that the Redemptress, Princess Isabel, died in 1921, once made to you. May you be the supreme ruler of this country. If Brazil is yours, and by this act I consecrate it, it will be a nation whose God is Lord, because you, Our Lady, are entirely of God. Bolsonaro is a lapsed Catholic who was rebaptized by a Protestant, is twice divorced, lives with a divorced concubine, attends mostly a Baptist service, and also received Novus Ordo Communion. 30th runoff election against former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, a socialist close to the oligarchs. So Brazil is under socialist rule, apparently, once again, as is the United States. But at least a president. This was kind of like whenever Trump went to the Pope John Paul shrine and held up the Bible for the picture, and Wilton Gregory was so angry. Now, accompaniment, dialogue, seamless garment. All right, you heard me talk about the Synodal Synod. I'm going to talk a lot about this today. We don't have a lot of news topics. And so you heard me talk about polygamy. Yes, they threw polygamy in this document. I think it's the common liberal tactic. Now, whenever I was first getting this channel kind of started up, I did a video on how the liberals, they push the spectrum, the political spectrum. They take it so far left that naive conservatives are willing to say, oh, well, I guess, I mean, like they say, oh, well, something like, you're talking about polygamy? Well, I can't go along with that, but I could concede blessings for LMNOP marriage. Well, okay, don't believe me? Look at altar girls, right? Well, I don't agree with women priests, but I guess there's no harm with letting girls serve at the altar and see how it goes. Like, well, I don't really think lay people. I don't think they have like a role at like a what would you say? How would you say present this topic? They would say, well, I don't know about communion in the hand, but um, I think it could be okay. I don't think it would be so much of a harm to the faith. Or, the priest really should distribute communion, but I think it's okay if there's Eucharistic ministers when there's a lot of people at Mass. And it just keeps going on and on and on. And then you keep going further and further left and look at the church now. The Novus Ordo Church, people say, well, these things really aren't that bad. But 50 years ago, what did people think? Did they ever imagine communion in the hand? Could they have imagined all these people handing out communion? I mean, it takes longer for the Eucharistic ministers to march up onto the altar and grab the hosts than it does to actually just start distributing communion. So anyway, it's Tim Gordon actually had a video on this, and I don't follow his stuff a lot, but he thinks this is pretty extreme. And I don't see a lot of other people talking about it. So the Synodal Synod document is titled Enlarge the Space of Your Tent, which he thinks is a perverted joke. If you think about it, yeah. The 44-page working document for the Synod on Synodality's continental phase is meant to spark dialogue and arouse feedback. This is from Catholic News Agency. So I didn't read it. It's 44 pages. Why would I do that? I have a lot of other stuff to read. So in terms of the ordination of women, it says, after careful listening, many reports ask that the Church continue its discernment in relation to a range of specific questions. The active role of women in the governing structures of church bodies, the possibility for women with adequate training to preach in parish settings, and a female diaconate. Much greater diversity of opinion was expressed on the subject of priestly ordination for women, which some reports call for, while others consider a closed issue. Okay, so it doesn't take it tries to present it as like, oh, I'm a neutral, unbiased third party. And that's the problem, because the perspective they're presenting it from isn't Catholic. It's from an outsider's perspective. And so, of course, they would say, oh, well, they don't allow women's ordination, but some people want it. Yeah, I mean, there's a few far-left heretics that want it. And others consider this a closed issue. Well, Pope John Paul II considered it a closed issue. So much for that. Okay, so then it says, the Church faces two related challenges. Women remain the majority of those who attend liturgy and participate in activities, men a minority, yet most decision-making and governance roles are held by men. Imagine that. It is clear that the Church must find ways to attract men to a more active membership in the Church and enable women to participate more fully at all levels of church life. Let me think about a great solution for that. Oh wait, you don't want to hear it. Okay. But yeah, it's funny. It's hilarious how they're saying, oh yeah, the feminized Novus Ordo, it is driving men away. We need to find a way to attract men. But at the same time, we should have more women involved, because right now, women are the ones who are attending Novus Ordo Mass. That's your solution? Bring in more women to leadership? Are you trying to drive out all the men in the church? I mean, all right. The document also quotes the Holy Lands report. In a church where almost all decision makers are men, there are few spaces where women can make their voices heard, yet they are the backbone of church communities, both because they represent the majority of practicing members and because they are among the most active members of the church. Again, problematic. Very problematic. And what's the solution for that? Let's water down doctrine. Getting to the LMNOP section. Among those who ask for a more meaningful dialogue and a more welcoming space, we also find those who, for various reasons, feel a tension between belonging to the church and their own loving relationships, such as remarried divorcees, single parents, people living in a polygamous marriage, LMNOP people, etc. Paragraph 94 says, many summaries also give voice to the pain of not being able to access the sacraments experienced by remarried divorcees and those who have entered into polygamous marriages. All right, so are we talking about like very far out, like Amazon tribal regions? Are we talking about like normal people? Because I don't know of, I haven't seen anyone anywhere, even the heretics on Twitter. I haven't seen any of them say, oh, I wish the church would accept my polygamous marriage. This is baffling. Unbelievable, really. I mean, in my previous video, I said I was shocked. What is this? In polygamy, we think of Mormons. We think of men with many wives, such as King Solomon, King David, in the Old Testament. Of course, Jesus very much clarified that in the New Testament and said, yeah, you can only marry one person, male or female, only one. Unless someone dies and then, you're free to marry someone else. But yeah, I mean, it was very clear in the New Testament. But polygamous marriages, see this, I personally believe this is saying things that are so repulsive to natural law and Catholics that it may make them more more open, I guess I would say. The very naive Catholics may make them more open to some of these ideas. Remarried divorcees, LMNOP, which is a sin. I mean, that's what it is. Let's not get away from that. But how many bishops are going to accept this? All right, and then liturgy. Well, let me backtrack here though. Women deacons. Let's go back to that. All right, if your bishop allows women deacons, is it sede vacante? Is his seat vacant at that point? I mean, you can't attend a mass with a woman deacon. You can't. You have to walk out. Anyone who witnesses an LMNOP marriage, anyone who administers, I mean, if a priest would administer an LMNOP marriage, then I would say that would be public mortal sin, and it would be scandal, probably public mortal sin, and at that point, unless he publicly repents, it would be like the Biden situation where Biden publicly supports abortion. He would need to publicly, egregious enough to consider that a public mortal sin, and so they're in a state of public mortal sin, and so what would their masses be? Would their masses not be licit? And so at that point, the Orthodox mass or liturgy would be just as valid as this bishop's mass, except the Orthodox, ordaining a woman or administering an LMNOP marriage would probably have a rather fruity liturgy. All right, so in terms of liturgy, the document says, many reports strongly encourage the implementation of a synodal style of liturgical celebration that allows for the active participation of all the faithful and welcoming all differences, valuing all ministries, and recognizing all charisms. The synodal listening of the church's records, synodal listening of the church's records many issues to be addressed in this direction, from rethinking a liturgy too concentrated on the celebrant to the modalities of active participation of the laity and access of women to ministerial roles. So if a woman preaches the homily, you have to leave. You cannot participate in that sacrilege. But think about what you just heard here. They want to They want to encourage the implementation of a synodal style of liturgical celebration. So that means that they're not satisfied with the current. But this is more synodal, so they're going to go more extreme. That's what they want to do. Rethinking a liturgy to concentrate on the celebrant. So the priest, in the Novus Ordo, the priest kind of leads the liturgy, but a lot of lay people do a lot of things. But they say we want to involve more active participation of the laity. And by active participation, that doesn't mean sitting in the pews and praying, offering your thoughts, offering your prayers to in union with the sacrifice. That's not what they want. They want more lay people doing more things. And when you have 20 people show up for a Sunday Mass and you have 8 Eucharistic ministers, what does that leave everyone else to do? Everyone has to do something at Mass. Everyone has to be constantly doing something because we can't focus on the sacrifice. In fact, there's not a lot of preparation for the sacrifice. We can't do that. Now, are they going to make a liturgy without the Eucharist and say that fulfills your obligation? I don't know, but it's not. There's nothing good. I mean, there's nothing good about what they say. A synodal liturgy. This is. I mean, it's hard to read. It's hard to fully grasp what they're actually talking about here. But I can tell you, it doesn't sound good. Okay, so the document cites the U.S. report, the U.S. Synod report, which describes division regarding the traditional Latin Mass. It says, the most common issue regarding the liturgy is a celebration of the preconciliar Mass. The limited access to the 1962 Missal was lamented. Many felt that the differences over how to celebrate the liturgy sometimes reached the level of animosity. People on each side of the issue reported feeling judged by those who differ from them. I don't think so. I don't think there were a whole lot of angry far left modernists who complained about the Latin Mass. I don't really think that was the case. I think what happened was there was so much support for the Latin Mass. And granted, I mean, a lot of people didn't go to their synod because they said this is fake and this is heresy and we don't want to participate in this. Now, I personally did. Got a group of people to talk about the Latin Mass, and I think we got a little tip of the hat from the diocese in the synodal report. But really, the message, we wanted to send a clear message to the bishop that, hey, the Latin Mass is the future, and you can ban it, but it's not going away. But I think the only people that are judged in this situation are the traditionalists, because we believe in the Catholic faith, and the synodalists, that's not good for them. They don't like that. They don't want the Catholic faith, because they wanted to invite non-Catholics, LMNOPs, Protestants, atheists, and say, how can we make our church a better place? Well, guess what? Asking them what they want and then doing what they want isn't going to bring them into the Catholic faith. Sorry to break the news to you. I don't know if some of these modernist bishops actually think that's going to happen. Probably not. I mean, I don't think most of them are that dumb, but I mean, you could have maybe a few of them that are. I don't know. And so now, okay. There's going to be an International Eucharistic Congress. So that's it for the Synodal report. I'm going to stop talking about that. I'm sure there will be more information on that coming up later. All right, the International Eucharistic Congress. In 2021, the Vatican announced that the 53rd International Eucharistic Congress will take place in Quito, Ecuador in the year 2024. The Pontifical Committee for International Eucharistic Congresses has now announced the Congress's theme: Fraternity to Heal the World. You are all brothers, based off of Matthew chapter 23, verse 8. Fraternity to heal the world. So the Eucharistic revival in the United States is about social justice. It's not about the Eucharist. It's about social justice. The Eucharistic Congress from the Vatican is about Freemasonry. Freemasonic terms. Anyway, this Bible verse, Matthew 23, verse 8, and this is how the modernists twist it. They've done it since Vatican II, and probably before that. In Vatican II, you can read quotes and you say, that's not the context of the Bible verse. I think you got it a little bit twisted. And this is the case too. Matthew chapter 23, verse 8. I'll read you verse 8 and 9 for the full context. Douay Rheims version. Verse 8 says, but be not you called rabbi, for one is your master, and you are all brethren. Verse 9, and you call none your father upon earth, for one is your Father who is in heaven. So this is Protestants quote this. They say, call no one your father, call no one rabbi, you are all brethren. And so it takes a very small bit into context. Now here's the footnote in Douay Rheims. It says, call none your father upon earth. And you can kind of relate this back to verse 8. It says, neither be ye called masters. The meaning is that our Father in heaven is incomparably more to be regarded than any father upon earth, and no master to be followed who would lead us away from Christ. But this does not hinder, but that we are by the law of God to have a due respect for both our parents and our spiritual fathers, and for our masters and our teachers. So it does relate back to verse 8. For one is your master, and you are all brethren. That just means that God's above everyone. Doesn't mean we are all brothers and we have to listen to them. No. No master must be followed who would lead us away from Christ. Thank you very much. Thanks for all the comments. Like Cardinal Zen said, they sold us out. Yes. Pray for the soul of my godmother, whose funeral was this Thursday. It's not a Latin Mass, but at least it's in a diocese with no altar girls. All right, what is your godmother's name? Kansas City Royals fan. And actually, I'm reading a really good book on the Holy Souls in Purgatory. The 2nd of November is All Souls Day. Go to a cemetery. You can get a plenary indulgence by going to a cemetery and praying. I think the SSPX has good information on All Souls Day, how to get that plenary indulgence. But you can also obtain one. Actually, on All Souls Day, you can go to a church and recite the Our Father, the Pater Noster, and the Credo. So if you go to a Latin Mass, that would fulfill that. Or you could go to a church and recite it yourself on All Souls Day. Now, from November 1st through the 8th, you can go to a cemetery and obtain a plenary indulgence by following the conditions that they specify. I don't have that offhand. Actually, I do. I do have it. Anyway, I'll get to that in a second. In an emergency, a Catholic nurse could baptize. Yes, absolutely. Any nurse can baptize. If a priest can't get there, yes. If your baby's in good health, then take it to Latin. Get an old rite baptism or a Byzantine baptism. I was in Germany. Tons of churches had to travel a distance for the TLM. Okay, so there we go. You prove my point. You don't need women baptizing people in Germany, except for an extreme situation. Lay peoples participating should stop at the altar rails. Well, women are the church secretaries, and that's where it should stop. And polygamy is forbidden by the church. Mormons are not Christians. I agree with all of this. Don't forget Jacob has 2 wives and concubines. Yeah. Biden performed an LMNOP marriage. There should be immediate excommunication right there. Oh, but Cardinal Hollerich says, well, a lot of episcopates, LMNOP. Join the choir if you want to participate. Well, if you're going super traditional, I think the super traditionalists say male choirs, but I don't know. I don't have a preference. Let me see. Let me find this for you. Okay, Poor Souls Indulgence. This is from the SSPX, and let me see. They want to. Thanks for joining us, Patty, and happy All Saints Day. Is it All Saints Day yet in Ireland? I believe it is. Happy Feast of All Saints to you. They want to turn the Mass into a party. These people are sick. Yes. All right, plenary indulgences for the poor souls. 6 general rules for obtaining a plenary indulgence. Okay, so 1, state of grace, at least one, performing the indulgence act. So you gotta, I mean, I think it's, at this point, it might be a little too late to get to confession because tomorrow's All Saints Day. Number 2, complete detachment from sin, even venial sin. I don't know. That's tough. Confession, 20 days before or after the indulgence act. Communion, 20 days before or after the indulgence act. Prayers for the Supreme Pontiff, 20 days before or after the indulgence act. And the indulgence act is a special good work with special conditions of place and time. All right, so 2 indulgence acts. From November 1st to 8th, visit a cemetery with mental prayer for the poor souls. And November 2nd, All Souls Day specifically, visit of a church or an oratory with one Our Father and one Creed being recited. So you could attend Mass, and that would fulfill that obligation on All Souls Day if they say the Creed and the Our Father. Now, partial indulgence can be obtained anytime by visiting a cemetery and praying for the poor souls. Good. Do it. If you're going by a cemetery, and even, I mean, if you know people that are buried there, stop. Take a few seconds and pray. The Eternal Rest Prayer. Or pray it in Latin. All right. TLM Chapel I have here is asking for women's voices, so they might have a women's choir once a month at the High Mass. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm fine. I mean, especially, have you heard like traditional nuns sing? I was at one Mass where there were traditional Carmelites, and I think it was a low Mass, which I think the super traditionalists would consider it liturgical abuse to have singing at a low Mass, but they sang a few songs, and it was really, really cool. I have to say that. Really inspiring. All right, let's see. What did I just do? All right, sorry guys. Same to you and all here, John. It's All Saints to here. I got the Nuns of Ephesus